We both here, standing on business with no fear. I mean that. It's the ring champs when the smoke clears.
Yeah, I mean, and Barak started the journey with me over in America. You know, when we launched DAZN, no one knew who we were. The world was against us, but and Barak were there right from the start. So two great guys. They know their boxing inside out. Looking forward to today.
And another one, an episode of the Ring Champs. I'll go with the name of Barak.
And I'm Barak, the boxing bully.
And it's about that time. We have Mr. Matchroom himself, friend to the room, Mr. Eddie Hearn.
How we doing, boys?
Good,
Very
good.
Thank you.
So much to talk about. People know you in America as AJ's promoter and the guy that brought DAZN to America, right?
Yeah.
Right? And innovative, risky at the time for a streaming platform to spearhead boxing the way it is now. And I remember in 2018, and I want to talk about early Eddie Hearn real quick, but I just want to touch on that moment in 2018 because we all know, especially us three, that every other platform said we'll be gone in 2 years, right? It'll be all over. Nobody's watching fights on the app. Everybody. Fighters on the other side, it was tough to get them on the show on DAZN. And here we are in 2025, right? The head of boxing, pretty much the biggest platform boxing. Did you honestly feel that we would be here?
Probably not as big as we are now. I mean, because, and probably not with such a culmination of so many promoters on the platform. Like normally everyone would have their individual TV deal, but it's almost become like a community for boxing that's really open to bring in other shows on. I mean, not just major promoters, but smaller promoters who have got shows. I think that's so good about the product is so diverse in terms of its offering that, yeah, you could watch Canelo Alvarez, but you could also watch a show from somewhere, on a Friday night. Yes, yeah. I mean, and in the UK as well, a lot of what would be perceived to be small hall promoters are now getting the opportunity to really invest and do bigger shows on DAZN. So,
do you take credit for all of that?
No, in the early days, it was wild because we came in and it was like, we've got two things we can do here. We had a significant budget for boxing. I can come in quiet and like try and have behind the scenes conversations with fighters, or I can just come out and say, I've got a massive budget, we're going to take over boxing.
And that's what you did.
Yes. Was that the right thing? Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, I still don't think there was a right or wrong way, but I did it my way. Like the other way is just not me.
Right.
But what was really difficult was obviously, and probably something that I underestimated, was the resistance that would come from others, right? The ones that would try to live with the budget, the increase in purses, and all this kind of stuff. And the hardest thing was to have the conversation with the fighters who were being told, Eddie don't know what he's doing, DAZN, what is this? You're risking your career by going on that platform. I remember when I met Mikey Garcia. He was one of the first fighters that I met when we did the deal. And I met him at the airport hotel at LAX. And I'm sitting down with him. I'm like, look, he'd heard of me. He'd seen me in the UK. I'm like, look, so we've got this new platform. It's called DAZN, right? It's an app, right? And he's going, what? Like, so what is that, a channel? I'm like, no, it's an app. So it's digital, it's streaming. I said, the best way I could describe it was, Netflix. Like 5 years ago, Netflix wasn't what
exactly. I
said, it's like that. Yeah. Right, okay. And then they would take it away, and the naysayers, or the people that would be trying to keep them to their promotional company, would go, you are going to leave, I don't know, Showtime or ESPN or whatever for an app called DAZN. And I'm pretty good at selling, right? And it was hard because they were just being told, this is career suicide for you to do that. We believed in it. We believed we had the promotional company, and we believed the platform would grow. The signing of Canelo Alvarez was significant for the platform, of course. And from there, obviously, there was the restructuring of that happening with Golden Boy, and then Canelo coming to Matchroom, and then we went on a great run, like 8 shows with Canelo. That really helped build Matchroom, and then we started to sign additional talent. Boots was a major signing for us at the time. Devin Haney, back in the earlier days, was kind of that first time a major young name had gone, no, I think Matchroom can take me to where I need to be. So, I'm really proud of where it is now. It's and the fact that a lot of promoters are trying to get on board, the same promoters
They're
that
online.
really,
Talk about
yeah. And listen, I don't blame them because I would have said the same thing
Mhm.
in their shoes. You
Right.
always try and, you're talking
your
down the
little
opposition
shots,
rather than talking them up. But
Yeah.
it wasn't easy.
I understand that. We went through it a little bit too,
Yeah.
but we had already made a name in the sport and developed relationships. So when we came to the zone, people were like an app, but they just came to the show for us. And you know what? Now that we're talking, maybe we should thank you. All of these years, people say they always DMing me or hit me up. Hey, can you speak to Eddie Hearn? I said, listen, I don't work for Eddie Hearn. I don't work with Eddie Hearn. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I barely know the guy. Like, stop asking me for stuff because they think that you run the zone and we were employees of
you own it.
Yeah,
Right.
I know.
But if you think about it,
I go along with it.
but if you think about it, rightfully so. If you think about it, the day that we met you and you brought the zone to America, it's because of you bringing it here, it changed our lives. We were already in the sport, but it still changed our lives.
I think it changed a lot of people's
So
lives.
I just want to say
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all right. Listen, I mean, even for me, at the time, I'd done 2 or 3 shows with HBO with Daniel Jacobs at the time.
remember.
And, I was pushing HBO to do more shows, but I knew also they were looking for an exit out of boxing. And timing's everything, and, I was able to get that deal with DAZN. And, although I don't own DAZN by any stretch of the imagination, we are partners in the US.
Okay.
And I'm passionate about the product, and I think the product itself is phenomenal. And I think you can't really, as a fight fan now, say that like it's not the global home of boxing. I mean,
You'll be lying and you'll be
every major fight is on DAZN.
Yep.
Even the big fights now that sit sometimes on Amazon
Right.
are also on DAZN.
Yeah.
Now it's funny because those platforms kind of need DAZN
Yeah.
because of the power of that subscription and the fan base and the community.
Yeah.
So when there's a pay-per-view, you know that if you're also putting it on DAZN, you're hitting, all those
The biggest boxing audience.
millions of boxing subscribers that are current subscribers, previous subscribers. That's your audience.
The one thing that I'm glad I never did, and we almost did, was design T-shirts that said "R.I.P. Pay-per-view."
Yeah.
Right. And I remember talking to Barak.
I never said, right?
No, I know you never did, but I'll say this. Like, I remember 2018, almost 2019. I was like, Barak, let's start rocking these shirts, and he was like, I don't know yet.
I said,
let's wait it out.
No, I said the people we love fight on paper.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's not do that.
But I was happy. Money was good. We had a great home, and I said, let's ride out for the zone, right? But we didn't, right? And everybody eventually realized that wasn't the campaign we should have pushed.
What I always said on DAZN, and I think Oscar may have pushed the pay-per-view is dead a little bit harder than me.
Right.
I never said pay-per-view is dead. I said I think the price.
I have to look that up. I don't know.
I say a lot of stuff. I don't think you'll find me saying pay-per-view is dead and it will never happen again. What I said was I think the price point for pay-per-view means that probably it should be dead in this country because I couldn't believe you were paying $89.99 or $99 for one night.
Right.
I just think it's an obscene amount of money. I mean, in the UK, our pay-per-view is $25 or $30.
Right.
And that's okay. Like it's still expensive for people, but and I thought, the idea of DAZN was to never do pay-per-view in its infancy.
Right.
But then they signed Canelo Alvarez, right?
Right.
It's impossible to be able to pay a rights fee. And for those watching this that might not understand that is a fee that the broadcaster will pay the promoter or the fighter instead of doing it pay-per-view. And if you look at the money that's generated, I mean, when Canelo Alvarez fights, if he does 500,000 buys at $70, you're talking about 25 million going to the promotion or more. That's not going to be the case when you're paying a rights fee. Do you know what I mean? So the model changed with the Canelo acquisition.
Gotcha.
And it was probably a bit awkward for DAZN because they probably never expected to get Canelo Alvarez that early.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, we're thinking, well, we can get Canelo, but we can't do it non-pay-per-view. So we have to go into pay-per-view. Oh, we've told everybody pay-per-view's dead. Oh, well, like, yeah.
It's hard.
But, like business changes, life changes, and situations change. And that's one of the hard things about boxing, because I could do an interview 3 years ago and then someone plays it now and goes, you said, I said, just 3 years ago.
Things change.
Like a lot, things change.
Hopefully things change.
Yeah.
Really.
So, like I said, I think the product itself is so good. Riyadh season's been a huge part of it because all the major pay-per-views have been on DAZN.
Right.
So it's had Fury Usyk, you know, it's had all of the AJ stuff, it's had Bivol Beterbiev, it's had now the ring event at New York City, Canelo Alvarez back. So, and that swelling of pay-per-views really builds subscriber base as well.
What up, fight fans? It's your boy Ak, and I can't wait for you to see the fights we have coming your way. And you know who we teamed up with? Our boys at DraftKings. Barak, July 11th, the trilogy. The most amazing boxing fight I ever been to, which was their first one. Their second one was just as good. I can't even imagine what we're going to see in Madison Square Garden on the 11th, Barak. But I think Amanda gets it this time.
First of all, this is historic. The same person won both fights, and there's a trilogy. Why? Because this is the most 50-50 fight I've ever seen. Finally, women have what we always needed, a rivalry. Incredible. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody gets stopped.
Well, I'm pretty sure those odds will be somewhere on DraftKings. I can't wait for that day. I'm going to make some money. Yo, go check out all that DraftKings has to offer. But of course, you got to use the promo code. That's right, ATS Fights. The crown is yours.
With so many different ways to play, DraftKings has something for every sports fan to stay in the action all night long.
Stop wasting time. Go check out all that DraftKings has to offer. Download the app right now. Right now, right now. Speaking of the ring, I have to ask you because I don't understand the situation with Shakur Stevenson, right? And then you have to frame it for me, make it make sense. So, to my understanding, there was a 2-fight deal with Shakur, right? He fought Padley. According to him, made the most money he's ever made in his career, right? And then now news breaks that he's fighting on another ring fight, but with Lou DiBella and not Matchroom. And I thought you kind of brought
not true.
Not true.
So, no,
okay.
We have a 2-fight deal.
Okay.
That was agreed with His Excellency,
right.
Shakur. Things changed a little bit of the dynamic of that because that second fight was supposed to be in Saudi Arabia. Now it's happening in New York.
But it's still Zepeda. But it was supposed
to be Zepeda. It was always the deal that we had but the deal changed a little bit because of, you know, there is a premium for fighting in Saudi Arabia. That's just fact.
That's what it is.
So, but this is our second fight with Shakur. Beyond that, I don't know.
So you guys are promoting that fight as well?
We're involved with him in July 12th and His Excellency and Ring Magazine.
Right.
So beyond that, that's when
ends.
Which obviously we don't want to happen, but at the same time, you know, it's never really personal. I think Canelo Alvarez is a great example of these guys, when it suits them, and when it's the right thing for them to do, we're in a golden position because we get on really well with them. And we're very good at our jobs. And Canelo was a good example of that, where, you know, we went on a brilliant run with him. And then all of a sudden, we kind of run out of opposition
for him.
or opportunities. And we actually didn't have any fight for him. And if PBC have got the right fight for Canelo, they're not going to give him to Matchroom and say, oh, do you want to use this guy? They're going to go to Canelo and go,
come over
you want to fight this guy? You better come over to us. And that's where Canelo Alvarez would say to me, Eddie, we get on so well. He goes, I love working with you, but I've got to go and do this fight. I go, sweet, don't worry. There's a difference between doing that and, you know, pretending that you're not going to do it and then doing it behind the back and behind closed doors. With Shakur, it's the same kind of thing. If after Zepeda, I have a great opportunity for him, he's going to be working with Matchroom.
Right.
If I don't, he's not going to be working with Matchroom. And that's actually the right thing to do probably for him.
For the fighter, right.
It's not, I don't think you're going to get to where you need to with that process, especially if you're Shakur. But I look at other guys that we're actually building. You know, I think the two that I'm particularly proud of is Bam and also Boots. Right, because now we're in a position with Boots where he is, in my opinion, I think the one. You know, you look at a lot of these fighters right now, they're all coming to the end of their career, a lot of them. And this is what's so cool about this card this week. Young guys, Tio, Ryan, Devin, they've all got 3, 4, 5 years left in the sport. A lot of the guys, Terence, Canelo, you know, even AJ, Fury, Usyk, these kind of guys, even, you know, Beterbiev particularly, Bivol, they're all in their 30s and coming to the final stages. And Boots, for me, is the guy that is going to be around for 4 or 5 years. Ruling 147, ruling 154, probably ruling 160 as well, and Bam as well. You know, I know it's smaller weight classes, but they're the guys where we've got the opportunity to show how good we are, to promote and to build profile of fighters.
I got to commend you for that because almost to a fault, you don't want to trap guys in long-term deals, right?
Yeah.
Like you give them that room to breathe.
You do. Like you do want to, but you
no. I'm talking about
you
doing
just show
it.
more understanding than
Yeah, but we don't. You know, I mean, look, you always want. I don't think any fighter should sign. I mean, I've seen contracts 5 years, 4 years. That's a huge,
6, 7 fights.
Yeah, but you have to really prove your worth as a promoter. And if you do the right job, a fighter should never leave you. Right. Now we all know that's not the case because they've got poor advisors, they've got in the ear. But generally, if you meet a good individual, they'll put that trust into you. I mean, the greatest example of Anthony Joshua. On that scale, right, and you know, dealing with a fighter individually is never really a pain, but dealing with the people that are around the fighter, it's brutal in this game because a lot of them don't understand the business, they don't understand the numbers, they don't really understand anything about boxing, but you're still having to have those conversations. And I was saying to one of the guys the other day, like, it's actually remarkable what we've done with AJ in terms of that relationship from professional debut to, you know, he signed a career-long deal with us. But even that, like, we've never fallen out once. He's never, you know, I've never heard of a conversation where it's like, apparently AJ's going to leave you, you know, like he's talking to these people. And we've done 3 contract renewals with AJ. And every time he's been offered probably more money to go somewhere else, but in the wrong deal with the wrong people. Do you know what I mean? And he's just smart enough to say, no, I don't want it. Like that's my goal. And when you get that relationship with a fighter, honestly, there's nothing like it. Like I go back to like Bellew, Froch, Barker, and those kind of guys. You know, when they just go, Eddie. Like I used to say to Tony Bellew when he fought David Hay, and like, he went from making a couple of $100,000 a night to £4 million, like in one night, and then the rematch, right? And I would say to him, mate, the contract's in. I want to sit down with you and go through. And he just said to me, Eddie, I don't need to read the contract. I trust you. Just get me the most money you can. And it's like the responsibility of that. I don't know, like maybe if you're a scumbag, you just actually go, oh, I'm going to take it on. But like for me, that's like, wow.
He trusts you for a reason.
100%. Yeah, but you've got to build that as well. Right. And that thing with AJ is something I'll never forget because like he could have gone elsewhere. It wouldn't have been the right decision. Right. But it was just that trust of, and that's quite rare in boxing nowadays. And, you know, for me, when you've got that commitment for a fighter, you go above and beyond. Like I always say, really, if you're a fighter, you should want as close a relationship with me as possible because I'm motivated to perform for you and to deliver for you.
That's a good point. You know, the other night, after Boots had that great performance against Stanionis, you said, oh, tear up the pound for pound I thought it was a bit much, but I get it.
What, from a promoter?
Yeah, we see. I know. That's what I said. I said he's a promoter. He's supposed to say that. But we do see the skill set. But do you feel like you felt when you got Canelo? With Canelo, you became a fanboy. You had the Canelo shirt on. Do you feel like you have that again?
Yeah, different fighters at different stages. I mean, Boots is still, 28? Like, he's still, sometimes you forget, he's a young man, really. Yeah. Like, that fight was really important because when I tried to sign Boots for about the last 5 or 6 years, really from when I came in. You know, I spotted him in the early days, and everyone was talking about him. Like he's not been a secret.
Of course.
And I had about 3 or 4 attempts to sign him. Eventually, we got him. And when we did him against Abanesian, out of nowhere, we did 15,000 in Philadelphia, right? And everyone was like, "Oh, Boots is good, but he don't sell." And I'm like, "When you say he don't sell, how do you know? Like you boxed him over on the West Coast or like wherever." Anyway, we do 15,000, boxes Abanesian, good performance. Then we do DAZN, which was unfortunately a mandatory. The IBF stuck on us. Second fight with him, we do like 11 or 12,000. Say poor performance, but just like average performance. Then we get the big fight with which, you know, that performance probably got us the Stanionis fight, by the way, because no one wants to fight Boots. Anyway, then he comes out and he's just special, right? He does what we always hoped he would do. We knew he could do, and he looked just absolutely phenomenal against a really good 147-pound world champion. You know, we do the 10,000 at Atlantic City back at the Boardwalk Hall, and it's just like finally, right? Because my job is so much easier off the back of a performance like that.
Of course.
And then, you know, it's like His Excellency, oh, yeah, we want Boots. We want him to fight Teofimo, want this. And then, you know, and all of a sudden, DAZN are like, wow, Boots did big numbers. It's like, you got it, right? And there's still a lot of work to do, but, you know, everybody's different, their personality. So do I see Boots as, and when I said rip up, like for me, off the back of that performance, he should be creeping into the pound for pound top 10. Okay. Still a long way to go.
I was on a broadcast hosting that day, and I did agree with you on the broadcast. Mannix didn't. After a week or two, I figured like, all right, maybe not the top 10, but knocking on the door.
Yeah, but when we look at the top 10, right? Usyk, Crawford, Inoue, Bivol, Bam.
Better be of Canelo, Nakatani,
Canelo,
Shakur, David Benavidez, Shakur.
But again, like, listen, Shakur I'm working with, but at the end of the day, like, you've got to look at the recent wins. Stanionis was clear number 2 in the division, and he battered him.
Yeah,
right?
that was a huge win.
Is Devin still in the top 10? I mean, he's 10 or something like that.
There's a lot of guys.
Again,
and that's all subjective.
Devin, I can see because he had a long layoff, but they've all the people we named accomplished so much.
Yeah, true.
And as far as performance, I was telling Barak, as far as skill level and performance, yes, he's one of the best fighters in the world. No question about it. Maybe another big win to get in there, but nevertheless, it's inevitable, right?
I mean, how good is, obviously we know he's starting to fight Canelo, but Crawford against Boots is a fight I've been calling for. Yeah, I think that's such a great fight.
It is. It won't. I don't think it happens, right?
No, probably not. Unless you can build the stock of Boots so that it's a big money. Crawford's only going to have big money fights.
He's 37, going on 38.
I think he'll fight Canelo, and he's done.
He's done. Yeah. He's done. And how do you think he does against Canelo?
You see, the thing is with Terence, he's got massive self-belief, and that's quite dangerous. Not for him. Like not against him, sorry, for it. Like he's so, I think he has no doubt that he beats Canelo Alvarez.
Of course.
I really like Terence, by the way. I think he's a great fighter. But I have to say, like, tell me his major significant wins.
Well, obviously Errol Spence.
Yeah, but come on.
But he beat a guy who was in the top 5 pound for pound, and he destroyed him. That's really never happened.
No, I agree.
In history.
I agree. I mean, that he was coming off, you know, some eye problems, but
nobody was saying that when he was beating.
But we're giving that credit.
And Ugas.
Tell me more.
I'm just saying.
I don't know.
That's a big win. Now,
keep going.
Your guy from the UK, who he stopped him. What, in the 5th round? Was it?
Kell
Brook.
Finished by then. Yeah, go on, keep going.
Okay, he stopped somebody that nobody's ever really can hurt.
Well,
Sean Porter.
I mean, yeah, but that was about 8 years before, and Errol Spence.
That wasn't. What do you mean?
Yeah, when he beat Sean Porter.
No, that was in 2023.
Who?
Terence Crawford beat Sean Porter.
No, I'm talking about Kell Brook against Sean Porter.
No, I was talking about Bud. I'm not talking about that. Yeah. But he stopped him, though. Nobody's ever able to really hurt Sean.
By the way, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just
that was a great win.
This is like an open.
And he didn't have a lot of names at 140, but Postal and all those guys, those are good fighters. They weren't big names. Just like Bam, he doesn't have the great. He doesn't have a whole lot of great names. Just like
Strada.
Anyway, he does have two great fights.
By the way, he's one of my favorite
doesn't
fighters.
have a bunch of names, but
this isn't on Crawford. This is the same for Inoue. By the way.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say.
I'm saying it's not.
But he's beating the best there is.
What I'm getting to is it's not Terence's fault.
Right.
But when you look at pure resumes, like I actually think Canelo's resume is so underrated.
No, but can I just say one thing?
This is what I'm saying. This is getting back to Canelo against Crawford. I wasn't that impressed with Crawford against Matchroom. Right? And I know Matchroom's tricky and all that kind of stuff, but he still had like 9 fights. Do you know what I mean? But I just felt that up at 54, you know,
had nothing to do with the weight, I think, because he hurt Madrimov. Madrimov didn't hurt him. It's Madrimov's just too tricky. He's
hard
tricky.
to time, man.
He's
very awkward fighter.
Yeah, but this isn't at 54, and this isn't at 60.
Right.
This is at 68 against a massive 68.
It's gonna put but size-wise, they're not different in stature. Same height. Bud has long arms.
Fascinating.
Now, by the way, I'm not saying it's Bud is gonna destroy Canelo, vice versa.
But gun to head. You have to choose one. I mean, you guys might sit on the fence because a lot of you guys don't want to upset anyone.
No, not only that, we have good relationships with both fighters. So I won't say that right now.
But I think gun to head, for me, you have to side with Canelo.
Everyone's saying that, obviously, because he's the bigger guy. He's done a lot more.
I think it's a very interesting fight.
Great fight.
And I think
great fight, though.
I mean, two greats.
I said, I don't know who was talking to Virgil Ortiz earlier, and I said that you consider Bud a very smart guy, right? In the ring, especially in the ring. You don't think that maybe he sees something that you don't see?
Yeah.
Or that maybe other people don't?
Everybody does. I think everybody looks at Canelo and says, he's getting on, he's a little bit flat-footed, he's getting hit quite a lot.
It's different being in there with him.
The worst thing is, and the truth is, right, because I know, because I had the conversations with him, Canelo doesn't really want to fight Crawford, right? He's never really liked that fight.
Of course.
For a couple of reasons. One, he feels that he's going to get no credit because he's much bigger than him. And two, he doesn't want to fight movers. Do you know what I mean? Like, when he fought Charlo, and Charlo just kind of just ran the whole night, he hated it. That's why he fought Munguia and Belanga. He's like, great fights. Yeah, bring them. They just come forward. And I can stand and, and play with him a little bit. Bivol, again, horrible fight for him.
Yeah.
Crawford's movement, Canelo will hate. And that's what Crawford's got to do in the fight. He's actually got to make it a little bit of a stinker. Do you know what I mean? And just be what he is, which is tremendous IQ. And just be in and out, angles, like popping him, and moving. And Bud's got the ability and the feet to do that for 12 rounds. Sometimes you
But he likes to mix it up, though.
He does. And I think he will mix it up. But, you could debate that fight all day long.
I want to go back to Shakur for a second because I'm not sure about what happened when there was a little trouble in paradise with what he said about not getting the offer that was promised to him from Turkey, and then so almost like he was on the outs, and then he tweeted, "My apologies, misunderstanding, we're good now." Can you explain that whole situation?
Just an honest conversation, I think, with His Excellency. I mean, as I said, there was a plan for Shakur to fight Zepeda in Saudi. And then all of a sudden, the fight was offered to him back in America. The money is different between fighting in America and Saudi Arabia. And I think His Excellency said, look, if you want to go on July 12th, this is the package. I think Shakur felt a little bit frustrated by that because obviously his plan was to fight Zepeda in September. Shakur's not the kind of person to mince his words. He's going to be quite honest. And then I think His Excellency probably wanted to reach out to Shakur or have a chat and clear the air. I think it was explained and then they moved forward. So I think it's a good opportunity for Shakur. I think it's a perfect fight for him.
Yeah.
Because really, you look at the brilliance of Shakur Stevenson. We talk about Boots and those guys. This guy's 28. He's a 3-division world champion, right? But you've got to have the opposition, certainly with his style as well, to look good against. And I think Zepeda is that perfect fight for him.
Yeah.
Because the only other fight is Tank.
Right.
Yeah.
And Shakur's hands, he has difficulty with them. He's not able really to fight consistently 3 times a year. And how much longer will they hold up? So for me, that Tank fight, I mean, as I understand it, Tank's fighting Jake Paul, which is the most bizarre thing ever, but I'm sure it'll do massive numbers.
Right.
And I don't know what'll happen with the Lamont Roach fight, but I just hope that, again, I don't know Tank, but he looks like a guy that could get his money and go next boxing.
Maybe
Right.
so.
Right.
But I just hope we get the Shakur fight before that moment, because in my opinion, Tank is, I talk about pound for pound great. He's another one.
Yeah.
And I hope he doesn't just go kind of Jake Paul and then then go, thanks guys. Like, we want to see you against the very best. That's one thing I really admire about Boots, and I think you guys will see it one day. Pure legacy. Don't get me wrong. What everybody wants to get paid.
Right.
Like, this guy is so legacy driven to be a great. Do you know what I mean? He wants titles, he wants champions. He's not interested in a joke fight. Like, it's even with the Teofimo Lopez fight. Like, now, His Excellency saying, well, Teo wins on Friday, Teo against Boots. I said, yeah, great fight. And Boots is like, yeah, if you like, but what about Norman? What about Barrios? What about, can we get those belts, become undisputed, and then try and be undisputed at 54?
I love that.
That's the dream that he has.
On Friday, July 11th, Netflix and Most Valuable Promotions bring you 2 of the best female athletes on the planet. One ring, one final chapter.
Katie Taylor is chasing ultimate glory. Amanda Serrano is fighting for redemption and revenge.
This is more than a fight. This is the first ever women's boxing trilogy, and the whole world will be watching.
The stakes, higher than ever.
The rivalry, legendary. Who will win? Don't miss the epic showdown live in Madison Square Garden in New York City.
Watch Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano,
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
live on Netflix. The
No, I love
landscape
that.
of boxing has changed a lot, right? So I want to get your opinion on Al Haymon, right? Because obviously for years, I guess he didn't like you, or he didn't want to work with you, but there were times where some of his fighters were on cards. With the way things have changed and DAZN being the global leader, have you had a conversation with Al about any fights? Can that relationship ever be better?
I mean, I think it's a lot better because we're making a lot of fights with PBC now. I mean, Stanionis was a great example of that.
Exactly.
And previously, they would never have given us Stanionis. Like,
Wow.
I had this problem when Kell Brook beat Sean Porter.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
for me, he was the best welterweight in the world. And they had the other champions. And it was just like, no.
But do you feel like it's
You-
because they don't
And
have
that's
any
what
options
happens-
now?
that's
No,
what
but you
happened to
just
Buck.
want to keep, at that point, you have to, it's never personal, but you have to keep your best talent on your platform, right? That's why your broadcaster is signed to you.
Right.
So you never want to give them to
Right.
another champion. Where now that work is becoming easier is they don't have the dates that they used to have. So
Right.
therefore, they have such a huge roster. If you just want to keep your fighters in-house,
They're never going to fight.
you're going to lose a lot of money,
Mhm.
right? Luckily, Louis de Cubas, who I've always had a brilliant relationship. I mean, going back to when we did Charles Martin against AJ for the world title, I made that with Louis.
Louis is a great guy.
We've never fallen out. We've always done 100% consistent business. He's taken a bigger picture in the business.
Yeah.
now. And we talk all the time. We talk,
Okay, so-
like every week, minimum.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think that door is open. I think what His Excellency's done to bring promoters together, sometimes you fall out with people, then you sit down, might be, and, with Oscar or Frank Warren. And actually, you kind of realize the one thing that we have in common is we love boxing,
Mm.
right? We may not have a relationship where we'll go out for dinner,
Right.
but we want to see great fights. We have a business that's in boxing and we want to make great fights. A lot of the time, promoters get, say, a bad end of the stick because no one's going to feel sorry for us, but they think that we don't want to make great fights. Like, the only way we make big money is to make great fights.
Yeah.
We don't want to pay for shit fights.
Right.
What's the point? What do you mean? I want to sit there
Yeah, yeah.
and watch a one-sided fight. I want to sit there and watch a great fight. But it's not really the fighters either. It's kind of the people in the middle.
In the middle,
You know, a promoter's job is to put on the best fight possible. A manager or an advisor's job is to get the most amount of money for their fighter
Right.
for the least amount of risk.
So is
Right.
that the biggest? What would you say is the biggest misconception that the casual or some hardcore fans have of a promoter or of
Probably
you? Or of
that.
you?
Yeah, probably that. Like,
Right.
oh, he's swerving him, or like, I get criticised actually now for putting my guys in too tough or too early, which I'd rather that one than the one, the other one. So you can't win either way. One minute you're putting your guy in a shot where a fight where he's 10-1 against. He goes, oh, Matchroom lose again. And the next one you make a fight where he's 10-1 favourite. And it's like Eddie Hearn never puts his fighters in real fights.
Right,
So
right.
you're never going to argue with those guys. But the reality is, the biggest misconception is promoters want to make big fights. We want big shows. We want great product for our broadcaster. But again, I go back to, and I'm not blaming the managers. That's their job.
Right.
You've got to protect the fighter. You've got to make sure that, and it's our job to create the path for the fighter, but not in fights that are boring as a product and that fights that no one's interested in.
So you just pushed it on the managers. I like that. All right. So look, I noticed that you're the kind of promoter that even if somebody's not working with you, even if they say something negative about you, you tend to say positive things about those fighters, probably thinking maybe one day I could work with him. Why would I say something negative about Shakur or anybody who said anything bad about me at all? But is there any fighter that you dealt with before that you said, you know what, I don't care. I don't even want to work with him.
Do you know what? I don't say those things thinking, oh, I won't upset them, because
Really?
no, I'm honest. Like, and everybody, I think one thing that's made me a little bit unique over the years is the accessibility of outlets to talk openly about my opinion. Sometimes that goes down well, sometimes it doesn't go down well. But the reality is like certain guys, I haven't really got anything negative to say about a fighter. Ryan Garcia slated me when he was going through his issues, right? And I was like, I'd read tweets and I just think, I haven't done anything. Like, you know,
Right, yeah.
And Eddie Hearn, he's involved with. I mean, it was really defamatory what he was saying about his testing, and I must have been like but I knew he was in a terrible place, right? And I keep saying, and now people are asking me, "Oh, what's your relationship with Ryan Garcia?" And I say, "This is my relationship with Ryan Garcia. I think what he's done to get back to where he is now is incredible.
Yeah.
He was in a hole, right? Mentally, emotionally, to a point where I was thinking, not only will he never fight again, I think something terrible is going to happen to this guy.
Right. A lot of people felt that way.
Yeah. And someone needs to get hold of him quick. But when you're in that hole, people can help. But the reality is the only one that can dig you out is you.
Yeah.
And he dug himself out. Right. And it's so good. Like there's no reason for me to say it other than I'm proud of him. He should be proud of himself.
Right.
Because I see him now at the presser, you know, back to Ryan, like pretty boy, you know, looks $1 million.
Right.
And he's such an asset to the sport.
Yes. Right.
Like even Tio.
Yeah.
Tio slagged me off for years.
Right.
Oh, when I lost to Kambosos, it was because of Eddie Hearn. I'm like, I just won the purse bid. I put this fight on, right? If it wasn't a Matchroom show, I would have won that. I thought, Kambosos ain't even with me.
He was attacking DAZN, everybody.
DAZN, everyone's against me. And for years. And actually, I saw him in Riyadh. Like the first time I've really bumped into him since that show.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he can't. He's like, yeah. And they're all like very friendly. Same like Ryan. When Ryan was going through his shit, he was tweeting, I'm on my way to Riyadh. If I see Eddie Hearn, I'm going to slap him. I'm going to do this. And then I see him in Riyadh. And I go to Frampton, and I go, all right. I see a tweet. And he goes, hey, man. Hey. Like this. It's like, and then Tio the same. I saw him in Riyadh. And he was like, yo, Eddie Hearn, yo. I'm like, and I said to him, I went, mate, I said, what have you? I said, you can't say what you're saying. Right. You're basically saying that I'm corrupt. Like I've influenced the judges to. I said, I didn't have a fighter in the show. I just won the first. Right. Oh no, don't be silly. I'm like, anyway,
you can't just do that.
Yeah, but then you start to realise, like Tio's a brilliant character. Like look at him yesterday, the build up to this, and then like that's why nothing personal. And then so people are saying to me, what do you think about Teofimo Lopez? Now Teofimo Lopez has done a deal with the Ring magazine. He's not available to me, and he's slagged me off for years.
Right.
And when I get asked about Teofimo Lopez, I say, I think he's great for the game. I think he's a great fighter. We need more people like Teofimo Lopez. So I don't like.
And if you had the opportunity to promote him, you would.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But at the same time, like I don't, you know, in answer to your question about who have I worked with that I don't really like or get on with, fighters are good people generally.
Yeah. There has to be somebody that
I would not work with him.
You wouldn't work with him.
I mean, you look at the people that really have given it to me.
Right.
Tank.
Right.
For some reason. Tank don't know me. He's never met me.
Right.
I've only ever said good things about Gervonta Davis as a fighter. Right. You know, but it's like they just get fed that this guy's the devil.
Didn't Joe Saunders used to get at you a
get on
bit?
all right with Billy now? You know, Crawford, another example. I mean, we never really got on, and then we started spending a bit of time together. And we kind of gel well together for the content.
Maybe it's just promoters that fall into that category where you don't.
I think there's a lot. The old school promoters, my dad would be included in this.
Right.
Once they fall out, or someone says something defamatory or untrue, like that's it. Like they take it very personally. I think Frank Warren's the same. I think Bob Arum's the same, but he can flip back and do business. I think my dad is the same.
Oscar De La Hoya.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but we've had our blow ups over the years.
You guys are good now.
Yeah, but again, it's the same thing where we've never really met.
Right.
I've talked some shit about him.
And he said some shit about me. You know nothing about promoting in America.
Yeah, but like I've talked some shit about him. He's talked some shit about me. And then we're brought into a room, and we kind of we never really blew up, but we had a little bit of a conversation.
Really?
Yeah, but like, and then it's like let's have a coffee.
So you guys kind of argued in the room a little bit.
Like we never really got on face to face, but we kind of got put face to face in an environment around his excellency, and also we were the same broadcaster. And then it was like one conversation. It was like, all right, look, come on.
Yeah.
But from there, it was
whose hand stuck out first?
For me, I'm always the one. I think that will go first in that respect. I don't really take anything that personal. You know, some people can go a little bit deeper than others, and you think there's no need to go there. But it's emotional business, especially for the fight, and also for the promoters as well. We're all fighting to win.
Yeah.
in our business.
Speaking of that, this business, let's talk about, I guess I would say, the elephant in the room, Dana White, right? TKO and this new partnership. I was trying to think in my head, like, how does it work and how everybody stays happy. I can't blame Turki Al-Sheikh, His Excellency, for wanting to do business with Dana because of the company he created and helped build it in the UFC and how successful it is. And he's being so innovative and wanting just to win, wanting to succeed because he's such a big fight fan. Explain to me in a perfect world how boxing stays what it is today, the titles, and this new venture with Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh become successful, and it's good for the young fighters that are coming up and whether they're creating a new title. The Ring magazine, the Ring belt, is the most established belt in history, right? So it's not going anywhere, so I respect it like the other sanctioning bodies. In your world, how does everybody stay happy?
Because I think, you know,
meaning, how does it work? How does it work where it's good?
Yeah, boxing is never going to be a sport that you can control because it's out of control. in a wild and good way. You know, I've said that before. Some people go, no, boxing's not. I mean, it's just like the narrative of boxing's dead. Boxing's not dead. Boxing's never been dead. In fact, right now, boxing's hotter, way hotter than MMA.
Well, can we give, it wasn't dead. Maybe it needed a little oxygen.
It's cyclical. It's like,
but Turki put some oxygen into the sport.
No, without him, we wouldn't be thriving like we are now.
No
doubt.
He's made it thrive.
With TKO, I mean, firstly, I think it's a good thing that Dana White is coming into boxing. You have to ask yourself, why is Dana White coming into boxing? Because he sees boxing is hot, right? It's a tremendous company. Dana's a very smart guy. Nick Khan, you know, all these people, very, very smart people. They are used to running a business where there is a lot of control over talent.
Okay.
Boxing is really not like that, right? And in my opinion, the only way that you can control the elite talent like that, like you need to in that environment, is to pay them obscene amounts of money, right? Or to just run a business and really just that actually.
That's it.
Just that.
There's no
I was
other
going
way.
to say, yeah, that is the only way. And these guys are smart. They're not going to overpay these fighters to the level that needs to be paid, in my opinion, to get them to fight this league and all this kind of stuff. Right. What they're going to do is they're going to come in, they're going to sign young talent, you know, some contenders, and they're going to put everybody together, probably make quite fun fights, but they're going to build something different on the production, maybe on the brand.
Right.
They're going to build some talent. Now, if it works, it's going to grow and it's going to grow, and then maybe that talent that they're building become big names and all that kind of stuff. I mean, one of the problems in boxing is when you go to sleep at night, when you wake up in the morning, nothing is ever the same, right? And these guys are used to running a business where they control everything. You go to sleep at night, everything's the same. Like, he's fighting him, you're fighting you, right? And a lot of those guys, that level of talent, they go, yes, thank you for the opportunity. Right, and that's the same with UFC. Every young MMA fighter has got a dream of winning a UFC contract. You sign a UFC contract, you fight who you're told to fight. But that's what you sign. No surprises.
So it won't succeed maybe with the fighters that are existing. But what if in 20 years that is the case?
Maybe
with the
in
TKO.
20 years, I mean, we might not be on this planet.
True.
But I think it's going to take a few years to build.
Okay.
But also, you know, I get on very well with Dana and I respect him massively, but we're also very competitive. Not just me, but I'm talking about Aaron, Oscar, Warren, Haymon, all these people. Yeah. And it's just like, at the moment, it's like half a little standoff where it's like, you know, they come out, we're going to take over boxing. You know, Turki will just stir his cauldron a little bit. We're gonna destroy the promoters. Yeah. And then it's like, you know,
wait a minute.
That kick, isn't it? That one, you know what I mean? Where it's like, hold on. So at the moment, it's like, it's
how does his
friendly, like what?
How does His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh feel about all this?
I think he appreciates that all promoters have to exist. Right. I mean, if you want this league, everybody's got to build talent. Right. Like, can't just have, in my opinion, one league. And that's the thing. They've managed to control that in MMA. I don't think they can control that in boxing. Like, don't forget, I've experienced it before. When we come in with DAZN, I honestly expected that with that budget, we would actually
$1 billion,
we would actually wipe everybody out.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, people like Aaron and people like Haymon, who are like me, stubborn, competitive, rolled up the sleeves and went,
"You're not taking
let's
over."
have it. Yeah. And it was like, it was a war of attrition. Right? That's the same thing here. Do you honestly think that guys like are just going to sit back and go, "Oh, well, it's been a great run." Do you know what I mean? Off you go, TKO Lee. The thing I'll say as well, never underestimate the value of the belts to the fighters. Right? Ring Magazine belt, I agree with you 1,000,000%. It's, for me, the prestige belt where, you know, there's no politics involved or no sanction fees. So it's just acknowledged that that is the best fighter in the world. These great organizations, fighters want these around their waist. Right? I've looked at it before. We've had investors come in and say, "Yeah, could create a Matchroom belt," and, you know, in this instance, a TKO belt. Like, maybe, like you said, in 20 years, those belts can become something.
What the
but
UFC
these
is,
have history. These have incredible fighters and heroes that these guys have watched have these strapped around their waist. Look at that belt there. You know, oh, it's Barak, but, you know, look at it on the right there, Muhammad Ali, right?
We just painted this belt.
No, they sent it to us like
and now next to Muhammad Ali. but that kind of ruins my point a little bit. But you know, but you get what I'm saying, right? They fighters.
There's legends.
Yeah, I know.
And then there's
At least I mean,
look at the night. Look at the stars that have been on the belt. Oh my God,
that is so funny. That is hilarious. All right, well, so maybe the ring will be the belt that they bring over.
Maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe,
you know
but these aren't going to like the same thing what I said about the promoters. Do you think Maurizio Suleiman and Gilberto Mendoza and all these people with because same with me, like it's family history, legacy. Their fathers created these belts. They're not going you know.
They're not going
so
hey, speaking of fathers, does your father still give you any advice in promoting? And would you listen to it?
I'd always listen to him. I mean, his mind is phenomenal and experience, but it's a different world.
Different world.
Do you know what I mean? Like what he did. I mean, he always says to me, you know, social media and Twitter and stuff like that. He said, "You're so lucky, but you're also so unlucky." He said, we would do a show and they would fly post actual posters under every underground station in London. He said, now you can reach every fight fan with your phone into their hand. But you also have to read the criticism and the opinions that come with it. He said, I would finish a show and I would go, "That was great. Let's go for something to eat." And that's it. Now, I finish a show, I go into my hotel room, I'm like that. You know. So, yeah, but we're lucky and promoting has changed so much. And he's like, when I was growing up, you know, my dad's a Hall of Fame promoter. So he was competing with Aaron, Don King, and like they were like this, you know. And he, from when he left boxing, which is probably when he was around 50 or something like that, he changed completely because it's a shit business. I mean, don't get me wrong, the excitement and the buzz, but you can't, like I said to you, you got to sleep with one eye open. And it's like the disappointments, you know, you could lose a fight or someone, you know, or you get stabbed in the back or someone could talk shit about you online or like every day it's just like, it's a war of attrition.
What's the worst thing that ever happened to you?
Just probably like a fighter leaving. Like
which one? What was the worst?
Do you know, not many have, but I would say probably, I'll say it wasn't his fault, but there's a fighter called Carl Frampton that you know very well. And we built Carl Frampton with you know, Barry McGuigan was his manager. But they never wanted us to actually get close to Carl Frampton because once you build that relationship, it's like, you know, and we did such a good job with him. I mean, build him, and we did a European title fight with Kiko Martinez, and we sold 8,000 tickets, and it was just like this kid's a star in Ireland, you know, like, and he could really fight. And then I just remember getting on a call with you know, their team the next day, and they're like, I said, "What a night!" I said, like, everything's got to change now, though. I'm like, and then after
wrong moment.
You know, back in the day, it's my fault, but I maybe not naive, but I just felt like if you're going to shaft me, you're going to shaft me. And I never had a contract with a fighter.
Wow.
For the first 3, 4, 5 years of promoting.
Wow.
Tony Bellew, Carl Froch, Kell Brook, Darren Barker.
No
Never had a
contract.
contract with them.
Wow. And they never left.
No, because I just felt like, listen, if you're going to shaft me, it is what it is anyway.
It is what it is anyway.
But as the business got bigger, we had to
the structure a little bit
yeah,
more.
but I do miss those days in a way. And I never had a contract with Carl Frampton. So it was well within his rights to go.
To go.
But it was like that moment where I thought, wow, like, we really worked hard on that.
You ever spoke afterwards about it?
Yeah, we spoke. We get on all right. But again, for me, fighters sometimes get infiltrated by the opinion or agenda of their
people
team.
around them. Yeah.
So, like, I'll meet fighters now who may have looked at me and got, like, Rolly's probably a good example, right? Never met Rolly.
Right.
But now all of a sudden in this build-up, I've spent a bit of time with him. And he's almost looking at me going, you're actually okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know, I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm quite normal. Like, I'm not like, but we can have a conversation. But they've been told, watch that guy. Watch that Hearn. He ain't no good for you.
In America, you came confident. People said you didn't know how to promote it in America, blah, blah, blah. You've shown that you can be successful here. But what did you get wrong about America?
It wasn't just America. I underestimated the resilience of other promoters.
And their relationships with their fighters? Is that what it is?
Yeah, the strength. I mean, how Haymon kept hold of some of those fighters when I was offering the money that I was offering was admirable, to be honest with you. Like,
talk about loyalty.
I mean, 3 or 4 times what they were making.
Wow.
And it was like, and they were ready to go. But then it was almost like, look, Al, I need to just speak to Al and just let him know what I'm doing. And I was like, oh no, don't do that. And then they come back, I've spoken to Al and we've got this plan. I'm like,
who was the fighter that you thought you had in the bag?
Charlie.
And then he flipped on you.
Which one? Which one?
Both of them actually.
Both.
But Jamal.
So you were in the Matchroom office like, guys, got the Charlo brothers. We're good.
Yeah, we had offers out with a lot of fighters.
Right.
And we were close with a lot of fighters. But Al did well during that time. And the other thing where I got it wrong was just understanding the market and the country.
Right.
And the difference between our country or the UK and America is what works in London pretty much works in Manchester. Right? And what works in Manchester pretty much works in Glasgow or Scotland. Over here, what works in New York is very different to what works in Texas or
Vegas.
And just understanding. But I think one thing that's very similar is the ability to build a fighter in their hometown, in the right city.
Yes.
Boots a great example.
Yes.
But I couldn't believe that the PBC weren't taking Boots to Philadelphia. It's like, he doesn't sell there. It's like, how do you know? He's not, you haven't taken him there in 2 years, 3 years.
Okay.
And then you go to Philly and you do 15,000. Leading up to that Avenesian show where we did 15,000, I was like posting going, we're through 10,000, we're through 12,000. And obviously, I'd hype things up a lot. And I knew that everyone was going, yeah, righto. And I was thinking, just watch on the night. And then all of a sudden, you see it. But that ability to build a fighter in their home city is so obvious. Like, that's like me having a fighter from London and fighting him in Scotland.
Right.
And trying to build him now.
Yeah.
Like, you see all these fighters from their own, they never really fight in their hometown. Probably the most powerful things that Crawford ever did away from the Spence fight and Wilder was to fight in Omaha and Alabama. Do you remember? It was wild.
Did it twice.
And so
Wild,
Bud
like
did
in Omaha, he
and
fought
Bud brings
Longo
him
there.
out.
I was like, Jesus. Like, that's,
And
I
Bud
know the
fighting
gate's not
Avenesian
going to
there.
generate always what you need it to, but those images are what people see and go, he's a massive star.
So do you have it down packed now? What you didn't know about America, do you feel like you have it all together?
Yeah. Not locked, but
Right.
like really comfortable with our talent,
Right.
with our schedule, with where we're going, the relationships with the arenas, and the way like the young fighters that we've got. I mean, look, guys like Ray Ford, Like that was a big moment for us to build a fighter from the pro debut to a world championship.
Wow.
You know, and that was the criticism of, are they going to build world champions?
That's a perfect
Diego
example.
Pacheco, another kid I signed at 17. He's number one with the WBO. He's like, the young talent's really important to us. Now,
who's out there that you want that's not on Matchroom? Can you give me one fighter that you say, damn, I wish I want him on my side?
I mean, I look at guys like Keyshawn, like Abdullah Mason, like Bruce Carrington, like that era of young fighter, you know. But we got Amari Jones, who I think is a star in the making. Zaquin Moses, Shakur's cut. We've got a lot of great young talent, US talent, and I'm very confident that in a 3 or 4 horse race to sign a young American star, we win right now. And you know that's impressive, because at the end of the day, for a long time now, when you talk about the number one promoter in America, my name's in the hat. It has been for many years. And
are you the number one promoter in America?
Yes. I mean, look, you're asking the wrong man. But I'll tell you something now, what I will say is, and although we haven't got on, I said this to him last night, I truly believe that the number one and number two promoters in America right now are me, Matchroom, and Oscar De La Hoya. I think we're the two that are pushing harder than anybody else. Like Bob is a legend. He's 93 years.
That's a lot to say for Oscar, because before you was keeping him on the outs.
I was, but actually he stepped his game up. Like, don't forget, 3 or 4 years ago, he wasn't as productive as he is now.
Clapback Thursdays?
All of that stuff. But all of that stuff.
More than that.
But you know, he's championing his fighters. I think he lost a bit of fire in the business. He might go missing on social media. Now he's speaking, you know, he's speaking at the presses. He's a big name.
Right. Yeah.
But you can't say that, you know, like we're doing 10 to 16 shows a year in America. PBC are doing 4 or 5, like, and they're still a big promotional company. But I you know, and that's I'm just from England.
Right.
No other English promoters ever come into the US market and had an argument that they're number one. Now, if you think I'm number one or not, you have to say I'm in the mix. Like, so I'm really proud of
know
what
where you're at, and you've done a lot since you came here. Has Eddie Hearn ever thought, no matter how good you're doing, about retiring?
I mean, not really. There was someone posted as like I think it was on Twitter, Eddie Hearn's retired. Literally, everyone. I had fighters that were messaging me going, "What the fuck are you? Like, are you done?" I'm like, "No," but I also don't want to be like
Bob Arum.
Yeah, or even sometimes Frank. You know, like, and we get on very well. But Frank's an unbelievable grafter. Like, but we fought for years, 15 years, and like I've seen how my dad has changed when he left boxing. Completely changed as a person.
For the better, you mean?
Yeah. So happy. Do you know what I mean? But it was like every night, you know, I'd come home from school and all I can hear is, fuck you. Oh, you know, the phone going down, and I'll come in, all right, Dad, not now, son. No, you know, like, it's just, and now he's like, all right, son. And, you know, I'll be like, oh, fucking hell.
You want to get to that point one day.
Yeah, catch you later.
But as much as you love boxing, and
but that's my problem.
Your reaction.
Boxing is my absolute passion. Boxing was never really his passion. You know
what?
I mean, he loved boxing, but don't forget, and this is, you know, a misconception that people don't understand about me, because sometimes they think promoter. What? Like, I'll be sitting in a fight and I'll be like, throw the left hook after the right hand, and sometimes I feel like people going, what? I'm like, mate, do you know that since the age of 7, I've been at every major show, right? I've been in every changing room. I've been in training camps. I've been at thousands of rounds of sparring. I've been with nutritionists. I've been with sports psychologists.
So how did you end up?
I've been with strength and
You might be one of the best trainers in the world.
But how did you end up promoting poker and managing golfers?
Because I loved boxing, but I never wanted to be a promoter. I was like, I saw my dad. When I used to follow my dad around the world, you know, I was at Hong Kong when he was having a row with Bob Arum about Tommy Morrison against Herbie Hyde. My dad did Barrera against Naz in Vegas, all the Eubank shows, Lennox Lewis, Nigel. I was at every fight.
Wow.
And I was sitting in the changing room with the guys, seeing them cry, seeing them lose, seeing them win. I've witnessed every experience in boxing.
I don't think any promoter has ever
from that kind
experience
of
that
age.
from that age. No.
But at the same time, like I never looked at my dad and I thought, oh God, I just want to be a boxing promoter. No, I wanted to be a footballer or whatever.
Right.
And then I went into, because I couldn't make it in sport, I became a sports agent.
Right.
So I was representing athletes. And then eventually I was representing golfers on the PGA Tour, the European Tour, flying around. Then I found my way into poker because I saw the opportunity for online gambling. But again, then I would study boxing.
Right.
I knew every fighter. I knew every record.
Right.
But I never wanted to work in boxing. We were done in boxing, Matchroom.
Right.
We were just doing prize fighter, which was this little tournament.
Right.
Then I met Audley, and it kind of like it just all slotted into place of like the passion that I had. But then when I rocked up into boxing, people were like, "Who's this guy? He doesn't know what he's talking about." I'm like, and that's actually the one thing that Frank Warren said about me was, I actually, what surprised me the most is how much you knew about boxing. And we would be sitting there, and I'd be saying, walk him onto the uppercut, and he'd go, yeah, because obviously he knows boxing inside out as well. He's been around it for 30 years.
Right.
So yeah, and I hope that I can. That's why when a fighter's making weights, like Eubank last week, I'm watching him come into the room, right? I can get weight off fighters.
Right.
I've honestly, I've seen it over 100 times. I've worked with 50 different nutritionists. I know exactly the process. It doesn't mean I'm going to start advising fighters on what to do. But when I'm in a room like Eubank was last week, and the guy's half an ounce over, and he's got 15 minutes to go, and I'm watching him just on his phone, I'm like, oh my God. I've got like literally, and with 3 minutes to go, they rush downstairs and get on the treadmill and like all this. And I'm thinking, what is going on with this team?
We asked Connor, would he rather go down to 147, win a title against Barrios, or get his lick back in a rematch with Chris Eubank?
What did he say?
It was a tough question. He couldn't answer it. That he ended up saying, get my lick back. With Chris at 160. What do you want him to do?
It's hard because it's such a physical disadvantage fighting up 2 weight classes. Right. And what actually annoyed me about the build-up was no one actually talked about that. Everyone talked about this narrative of Eubank coming down in weight or that's his weight.
That's his weight.
I was like, for 4 fights. I was like, I can't believe you're making him come down. And by the way, the hydration, he weighed in on the Saturday morning with his big Louis Vuitton jacket on, and he was still half a pound inside. The hydration was not a problem for him. Right. The problem was making the 160, right? And it is tough for him. Yeah. But that's his
but that's his weight.
World
and
champion.
you say 4 fights, but it was really 7
or whatever it was in a row.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? He just made it in October in Saudi.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, Eddie, you're out of order. And I'm like, no one's saying this is actually dangerous for Conor.
Right.
So can he beat him in a rematch? Yes. And I think now he won't have the inactivity. And also that fight takes miles off the clock, more so for the older man.
All right.
But he can beat Barrios.
Lastly, AJ, real quick. What's next for our guy, AJ?
So we sit and hope for the phone call from Mr. Fury. And it doesn't mean we're going to sit there for forever. 6 months or a year and wait for the call. But at the moment, he's nursing a little injury. So he's not really been in full training. So he's quite chilled at the moment. I mean, I look at it, I said, look, Usyk's fighting Dubois. If Dubois wins, you rematch Dubois for the Undisputed World Championship, which would be your first shot at Undisputed, which would be amazing.
Right.
But everybody wants to see AJ against Fury. I mean, by far the biggest fight in British boxing history. It's probably the biggest fight in world boxing. But it's over to one man. Really, we're ready. We're ready to go. But it's going to take Tyson Fury. And, I would never give a fighter in this situation the strength to say he's got the keys. Fury has. But he has. I mean, that's the reality. It's one phone call. It's made.
What about Wilder AJ?
I haven't liked what I've seen from Deontay. I don't think he's anywhere near the fighter that he once was. But maybe he comes back and looks good. And that fight, we don't forget, again, contrary to belief, we signed to fight Tyson Fury. And he lost his arbitration with Wilder, and we couldn't make the fight. We signed to fight Deontay Wilder, and we were announcing that night in the ring, and he lost to Joseph Parker. Yeah. So, AJ's he's up for all those fights.
Looking forward to seeing him again.
Yes,
AJ, he's one of the greatest people you could ever meet. But the fire still burns.
Self-proclaimed the best promoter in the world, Eddie Hearn. Thanks for the time, Eddie.
Nah, you definitely are the best. We always say that.
We say that.
We always say
Yeah.
that. We tell everybody that Eddie's the best.
There you go.